tell you something most teens don't know. Your brain is wired to care about what other people think, especially during your teenage years. In fact, scientists have discovered that the part of the brain responsible for social awareness and judgment sensitivity becomes extremely active during your teen years, which means feeling nervous about speaking up in class or in front of a crowd in public is not a personality flaw. It's biology. Today, we're unpacking the science behind social anxiety in teens and learning practical ways to build the courage to speak up, even when your brain is telling you to stay quiet. Welcome to the Gracefully Growing Podcast, where we provide you with real talk, real growth, and real life tools to help you thrive in school and in life. I am Dr. Kemi, author, speaker, educator, and gratitude advocate, as well as mom to an amazing 13-year-old sunshine. And I am so excited that each week you continue to tune in as we continue on this journey to exploring the 5 key principles that will guide you to a fulfilling life. And those 5 key principles are gratitude, reflection, affirmations, connection, as well as empathy. If this is your first time here, let me catch you up real quick. Each week, we break down how to live with intentionality and thrive in this wild journey called life, using the 5 key principles that I just mentioned. We have a celebration. We made it to 1,000 subscribers. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers. As a matter of fact, we're barely 300 subscribers away from 2,000 subscribers. So here's what I want you to do. If you've been watching me and you have not clicked that subscribe button, I want you to do it right now. Go ahead and click that subscribe button and turn on your notifications so that you do not miss a notification of when I drop a new episode, which I do every Monday morning. Also, before we begin, I want you to go ahead very quickly, go ahead and grab your journal. If you do not have a journal, grab a notebook. If you don't have a notebook, open the notes app in your phone because you're going to want to take some notes. And if you're looking for a great journal to help you get started on your journey towards gratitude and affirmations, I have written the affirmation gratitude journal that is available on Amazon. And I am going to put a link to it in the show notes. What are we talking about today? Today, we're talking about the truth about social anxiety in teens and why speaking up feels so hard and so difficult. There is something fascinating about the teenage brain. So let's talk about the teenage brain, for example. During teenage years, the brain becomes hyper aware of social evaluations. In simple terms, this means your brain is constantly asking, what do people think of me? Do I fit in? Did that sound weird? Did I embarrass myself? Now, psychologists call this the imaginary audience effect. Teens often feel like they are on a stage and everyone is watching. But here's the truth. Most of the time, everyone else is busy worrying about themselves. Child, they're not even thinking about you. So let me give you an example of how this shows up. I once had a teen tell me I didn't answer the question in class because I thought everyone would judge me. So I asked that student, can you remember what anyone else said in class today? She paused and looked at me. Not really. Exactly. People are usually too busy thinking about their own lives to worry about yours. Now, we're going to talk about the brain science for a moment. So we're going to pause and talk about the brain science for a moment. Because what you're actually feeling is not weakness, it's biology. All of this data that I've gathered has come from my many, many years as first as a science teacher and later on as a school administrator. So as a science teacher, we got to talk about the science. What you're feeling is not weakness. It's biology. There are two parts of your brain that are always constantly active during every social situation. The amygdala, this is your brain's alarm system. It scans for threats. That's its job. The problem with the amygdala is this. It cannot tell the difference between a tiger chasing you or a teacher calling your name. It cannot decipher that difference. So when you think people might judge you, this is what your brain does. It sends a signal, danger, danger, danger. So that's why you feel the sweaty palms, the racing heart, the tightness in your chest, the shaky voice, because your brain thinks it's protecting you. Now, here's the interesting part. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, which is the part that is responsible for logical thinking and thoughts, is still developing in teenagers. So what this means is emotions often speak louder than logic. This is what makes most teens so much more emotional than logical. And they react based on those emotions. So even when you know this is not so much of a big deal, your brain may still say, abort mission, abort mission. So let me confess something before I go on. Even as an adult, I experienced this. So this is not something that is just a teenage thing. So I remember once speaking at an event. Listen, I walked confidently onto that stage. However, inside, tell you what my brain was doing. My brain was telling me, please don't trip. Please don't trip. Please don't trip. And listen, that was the day I decided I was going to wear some 3-inch, almost actually 3.5-inch heels. So you already know my brain was going, please don't trip. Please don't trip. Please don't trip. Because falling in front of an audience of 150 people, yo, that would be so embarrassing. Here's the key. I want you to remember, I was confident, right? Yet my brain was telling me, please don't trip. Because to me, at that point, that would have been the most embarrassing thing. Because here I was, this big speaker, I'm speaking in front of an audience of 150. Oh, yes, I was a big deal, right? But confident, it isn't the absence of nerves, because I was confident. But that did not remove the nerves, right? Confidence is acting anyway. So we got to act like there are no nerves, because I stepped on that stage with my 3.5-inch heels, even though I was nervous and my nerves were bad. But guess what? I acted like my nerves were not bad and that I had a lot of confidence. So confidence is acting like you're confident. I'm going to talk about one myth that most teenagers believe in. Most teenagers believe this myth. Once I feel confident, then I will speak up. No. Confidence actually works the opposite way. Confidence comes after repeated actions, not before. So every time you speak up, Your brain gathers evidence. Your fear shrinks slightly. Your confidence grows. It's kind of like going to the gym, right? You don't become strong by thinking about lifting weights, or do you? Do you? You don't lose weight by thinking about lifting weights, or you don't lose weight by thinking about all the healthy foods that you're going to eat. You don't lose weight by thinking about exercising. How do you lose weight? One day at a time, going to the gym, going to work out, exercising, making conscious decisions to eat a healthy meal. Speaking up works exactly the same way. You got to put in the work. You got to practice. So we're going to talk about 3 strategies that will help you to speak up even when you are nervous and lacking some confidence. Here are the 3 strategies. Strategy number 1, start small. You do not need to become all of a sudden the most talkative person in your class. You're going to start simple. We're going to start with small wins. Answer one question. Ask for clarification. Share one idea in group discussion, because those small actions build your confidence. Strategy number 2. I want you to focus on the message, not yourself. The thing about social anxiety is this: it makes us overly focused on ourselves. So I want you to instead shift your focus. And how do you shift your focus? You got to ask yourself, what idea might help someone else understand this? And when you focus on contributing instead of performing, your anxiety decreases. Strategy number 3, use the 3-second courage rule. And you're saying, Dr. Kemi, what is that? When your brain says, raise your hand, count 3, 2, 1, and then do it. Because here's the thing: if you wait longer, your brain will definitely talk you out of it. So now let's talk about how the GRACE framework fits into this. When social anxiety hits you, I want you to use the GRACE reset. GRACE is not just a mindset. It's a mental reset button you can use in real time when anxiety starts to creep in. Let's picture this. There you are sitting in class. Did you ask a question? Your brain says, I think I know the answer. But your body says, absolutely not. Your heart starts to race. Your hands feel sweaty. Your brain starts running through the worst case scenarios like a movie trailer. What if I'm wrong? What if people laugh? What if my voice cracks? That's the moment you want to use the GRACE framework. So let's work through it together, starting with the letter G, gratitude. Now, I know that this might sound strange because you're thinking, I know what you're thinking. I used to be a teenager, Dr. Kemi. I'm about to panic in math class. And why are we talking about gratitude again? Here's what science says. Gratitude literally changes your brain chemistry. When you focus on gratitude, your brain shifts away from threat mode and activates areas linked to calm, perspective, and emotional regulation. So instead of focusing on fear, say to yourself, I am grateful I have a voice. I am grateful I get the opportunity to learn. I am grateful my brain even thought of the answer. Because believe it or not, there are millions of young people around the world who wish they had the opportunity to sit in a classroom and share ideas. So gratitude then reminds you that your voice is not a burden. It is a gift. And when you start thinking that way, your brain begins to shift from everyone is judging me to I have something valuable to contribute. I'm going to pause here for a minute and share a story. And I've shared this before about how I almost quit on this podcast. But now here's what I do. I have a little note to myself on my computer, and I remind myself every time I want to quit. People are actually waiting for what I have to say. And that's my reminder to keep going. Let's talk about reflection. Social anxiety often comes from automatic thoughts. These thoughts appear so fast that we rarely question them. Your brain might say, if I get this wrong, everyone will think I'm stupid. But reflection reminds us to slow our brain down and ask a powerful question. Is that actually true? Let's test that thought. Think about the last time someone in your class answered a question incorrectly. Did everyone suddenly stop respecting them? Did the teacher cancel school for the day? Did the entire classroom erupt in grammatic gasps? Probably not. Most likely, the teacher said something like, good attempt. Let's think about it another way. As a teacher, I would often tell my student, thank you for trying. Can somebody else add to that? Or does somebody have a different answer? Right? The class moves on. Reflection helps you realize something important. Your brain is predicting catastrophe, but reality is usually much smaller. Reflection also helps you identify what you're actually afraid of. Is it being wrong? Is it being laughed at? Is it drawing attention to yourself? Once you name the fear, it becomes less powerful. Unidentified fear feels huge. It feels humongous. Identified fear becomes manageable. Now let's talk about affirmation. And no, affirmations are not just motivational posters or Instagram quotes. They are mental instructions to your brain. Your brain listens to the language you repeat. So if you're constantly telling yourself, I am bad at speaking, I'm going to embarrass myself, your brain starts treating those statements like, and the job of affirmation is to interrupt that pattern. So before speaking up, you can quietly say to yourself, my voice deserves space. I don't have to be perfect to participate. Learning includes mistakes. One comment will not define who I am. One of my favorite affirmations for teenagers is this: I am allowed to take up intellectual space. You are allowed to take up intellectual space. What this means is that your ideas, your questions, and your thoughts deserve room in the conversation, not because you are perfect, but because growth happens through participation. Next up is connection. Here's something many teenagers don't realize. Classrooms are not performance stages. They are your learning communities. I often say that. Connections is about who's your who is in your community. When you share an idea, you're not just speaking for yourself. You might be helping someone else understand that concept too. There's always another student in your class thinking, I was wondering the same thing, but they're probably too nervous to say anything, right? So when you speak up, you may actually be helping 5 other people in the room. I have seen this happen in my 20 plus years as an educator. As a teacher, I loved this. I loved students who spoke up. And I loved it because your questions always sparked intelligent conversations and academic discussions. And these discussions, I find, spark learning. And learning sparks curiosity. So connection also reminds you that the teacher is not your opponent. We are your learning partners. Your teachers are your learning partners. Teachers ask questions not to embarrass you as a student, but to help you grow. So instead of thinking that everyone is judging you, I want you to try shifting that mindset to we're all trying to figure this thing out together. Because oftentimes that's what's going on. Everybody just trying to figure this thing out together. We're now going to move on to empathy. Social anxiety makes us believe that we are the only person feeling nervous. That's a whole lie. Let me tell you the truth. I want you to look around the room. The student next to you might be feeling nervous about the test. The student behind you might be worried about a friendship problem. The person across from you might be thinking, I hope the teacher doesn't call on me. You see, everybody carries their invisible thoughts and worries. Empathy allows you to remember that you're not alone in feeling this way. In fact, research has shown us that most students feel nervous speaking in class at some point. Even the confident ones, I know, even the popular one, what? Yes, even the students who look fearless. Empathy softens the moment. So instead of seeing your classroom as a place full of critics, I want you to start seeing the room as a room full of humans, all learning, growing, and sometimes feeling unsure, just like you are. So the next time your heart starts racing and your brain says, stay quiet, pause, take a deep breath, and walk yourself through grace. That is the gratitude, the reflection, the affirmation, the connection, as well as the empathy. 5 small mindset shifts. But together, they create something powerful. They help to transform anxiety into courage in motion. Because remember, confidence doesn't always sound loud. Sometimes confidence sounds like that, a slightly shaky voice saying, I think the answer might be, and that moment right there, that's growth. All right, listeners, here's your grace challenge for the week. Pick up once per day, just once. It could be you asking a question. It could be you sharing an idea. It could be you answering when the teacher asks something. Then at night, I want you to reflect what happened. You probably discover something surprising about yourself. The thing you feared the most usually never happens. Even if you do stumble, that's okay. Because courage isn't about never being nervous. Remember, courage is speaking while nervous. I often tell my students, do it afraid, do it scared, do it nervous. In closing, if speaking up feels hard for you, remember, it does not mean that you're weak. It means you're human. And every time you use your voice, you strengthen it. Quiet confidence grows one moment of courage at a time. So until next week, I want you to remember that your voice matters, even when it shakes. So continue to stay graceful, stay growing, and remember, I am rooting for you, and you got this. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Gracefully Growing. Thank you so much for tuning in and growing with me. Remember, living with grace means showing gratitude, taking the time for reflection, speaking powerful affirmations, building strong connections, and practicing daily empathy with yourself and others. If today's episode gave you something to think about, inspired you, or made you smile, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. You can also download today's free resource in the show notes and join our Gracefully Growing community on social media for more tools, encouragement, and real talk. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, keep growing, and most of all, keep living with grace. I am Dr. Kemi. See you next week.